We are back. Paws Up Podcast, episode 28. Just us three today. I think more of a house cleaning type of episode, I would say, guys. FIU football is kind of getting it back going with their practices. FIU baseball, we have some transfer news. Soccer is back, and we have that schedule out. So just us three today, kind of just a more of a discussion type podcast. No real planning into it, but we have our usuals. Jake, Jonny. Jake, what's up? FIU football got going. We saw you saw a little bit of the practice. I was there for the majority of it, and Jonny,
right?
We saw you the next day. But what's up, Jake?
Yeah, just super happy to, as you said, there are so many storylines going on in the world of FIU athletics at the moment, and of course, we love having guests on the show, and of course, a big thank you to everyone who has been on the show as of late. We've been sort of on a hot streak with guests, but I think it is time to sort of highlight what we have all been seeing from FIU football in these spring trainings, which of course they're going to continue to do for a few weeks before we really get into the start of the season. So super happy to be here. Lots of cool stuff to talk about, but we can't start with FIU just yet. We have the man of the hour, the man of the match over here, Kevin Barral, participating in the Miami Marlins media softball game yesterday, and he put up some numbers. Kevin, 1 for 2, came home for a run, and your team, I believe you were red team, walked away with the win. Just talk to us about that experience, Kevin. Just how hyped were you at the beginning of the game?
Next Luis Ariz.
I'm the next Luis Ariz. Hit up the middle. First pitch, I made contact twice. The first time it was a grounder, obviously. That's the beautiful play that came up on the Dan Le Batard show, but it's fine. And made contact on the first pitch there, and then kind of, had to make an adjustment. Pitcher was thrown, pretty high for the most part, so I knew you had to get, a little higher swing. That's exactly what I did, and I got to hit up the middle, was able to score there. Shout out to Andres Bolivar, who drove me in there. And we had a great time. It wasn't really a close game at all, to be honest with you. Okay. Shout out to the TV, but
what was the final score? It was 13-9.
13-9.
13-9.
It got close once. We were up 5-0 at one point, and all of a sudden, the TV guys just came and they scored 4 runs, and we're like, oh god, all right, we gotta score a little bit.
Fishing, you're swimming.
And we were swimming, baby. We were swimming.
Did you do the Ariz thing to the first base coach?
No, we did something else. It's like some Venezuelan song. So it's like a dance move. So it goes like this. And we had to do it 5 times. So we all did that. We had our own celebration.
So wait a second. So you say it was never close in the game. So what was your mood during the course of the game? Where there was never a point where you felt like the lead wasn't secure, or did you sort of have that mama mentality where like, oh man, this is light, I'm putting in work, there's no way Red's gonna go down?
Throughout the game, we knew we were trying to have fun, but at the same time was like, no lead is ever safe in softball, especially how slowly we were throwing, the pitchers were throwing the ball, how easy it was to get a base hit, and obviously us not being the most athletic people ever, you make a misplay and the ball goes rolling all the way to the outfield, so all the way to the end of the outfield. So it's like inside the park home runs were possible. We had, I believe, 3 inside the park homers. They had 1. So that kind of helped us out. But when, it was 5-4, we were a little bit nervous. We knew we had to get something going here. So we scored, I believe, 4 runs right after. They got to 9. We got to 13, but we needed to close it out. It got really, really chippy towards the end. I won't say who, but someone got very mad. I'm not going to he's never going to watch this. Andy Slade got very mad. So it was a good time. But we were able to close it out, and we celebrated like we won the World Series.
Oh, of course. You say friendly. No, it's competitive. You're at a professional baseball stadium competing. Of course, it's going to be good. So, how much preparation did you do ahead of time for this match?
I practiced like twice. I went to a baseball field, threw a little bit. I hit. I wasn't feeling too good, but then at a couple days before we were talking about it, I'm like, these guys aren't that good. I think we should be good to go. So yeah.
All right. So who would you say was the MVP of Team Red?
Shout out to Christina Di Nicola. She played amazing defense. If it wasn't for her getting some double plays going, I think we would have been pretty screwed. So
she had that Jazz Chisholm defense. Okay.
I was saying we need something with FIU media. We need a little,
We need to do
flag
something.
football, pick up basketball.
Scott Carr, if you're listening, we need to do this. It needs to be Paws up versus the world when it comes to like a game of baseball. I'd be so down.
Scott, I know you watched this.
Yeah, you like all our stuff, Scotty. All right, come on, don't leave us hanging.
All right.
Anyway, congrats on the performance, Kevin. Did they actually give you a trophy or a ring or anything? No, just
we just
memories.
got a lot of high fives.
Okay, a lot of high.
But it was a good time. I mean, not many people could say they played in Lone Depot Park
Facts.
Media softball game. So
Facts.
hopefully, I'm chosen to do it again next year. And obviously, fish on.
Oh, this is an annual thing.
We hope it's an annual thing.
Okay.
This was the first time they did it since I believe 2016. I want to say. So it's been a while. So
cool. Alrighty then, let's get into
get it
the
going.
meat and potatoes of FIU athletics.
Yes, sir.
Of course, being FIU football spring training.
Yeah, football. They're beginning their summer camp, which is just basically the camp leading all the way up to week 0 when FIU makes their way to Ruston, Louisiana to face on La Tech, 9 p.m. Eastern time on CBS Network. That is the first nationally televised game of the season for FIU. Not only that, it is a conference game. And I was kind of doing my research a little bit on this game, and they have a nice quarterback out there, transfer from Boise State, I want to say. 3-year starter comes into La Tech. Obviously, he's probably going to be the starter, but you have Grayson James on the other side, hopefully, and that's where I want to start. We don't know who the starter is going to be. Coach Mack has yet to announce a starter. I've tried to see if he could get it out a couple times. He's been pretty tough with it. He does not want to say what it is, but Jonny was there. Jake, you've seen the videos and you've seen stuff.
Yeah.
When we look at this team, it's tough to really make the clear picture on who's going to be the starter. Grayson, I think Grayson looks the most confident, and this is probably where I'll go to Jonny. But when we look at who's taking how many reps, Hayden Carlson is not taking the most reps. It's Miami Central High School guy, Kewan Jenkins, taking the second most. It's been Grayson and Jenkins. Jonny, just what have you seen? Obviously, you were there once, but I mean, we saw more than enough to know who's taking more reps, and
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you talk about Grayson James, who Coach talked about, in offseason, he dropped 20 pounds. He's now, he's jacked up, and you can see how confident he is, in the quarterback spot. Talk obviously over spring ball, the relationship that he has with all the receivers, and he's been really good. And he made some nice throws. Was it Tuesday morning? He made some nice throws, and you can see he's more accurate, and he has a better feel with the offense with David Yost, especially now in going into his second year. You're going to expect that out of your rising junior quarterback. You talk about Kewan Jenkins, who obviously a freshman, and he's getting the second reps and snaps, but with him, very different. Athletic-wise, he can really run out of the pocket, scramble, find his way through, and it's also had some nice throws as well. But still, this is a good depth on the quarterback spot. You talk about Hayden Carlson, and we always talk about the Middle Tennessee game, threw for 4 touchdowns. He's obviously it's all about the depth in this team. But right now, Grayson's getting more of the snaps, and somebody that I obviously with a starter last year with 10 starts, you can definitely expect. Obviously, it's not announced. We'll probably see that announced near come time in a couple of weeks. But Grayson's been the guy who has been very exciting, and a guy you can see who's really confident into year 3 overall with FIU.
Yeah, and to sort of add on to what you were saying, Jonny, there's still so much time for McIntyre and the coaching staff to determine who they want to be the starting quarterback on day one. But something that is absolutely clear in both college and professional football is that experience matters quite a bit, especially when you have to go up against a Conference USA opponent in your first game that historically you and them in recent years have had some battles, like some extreme battles. And Louisiana Tech is one of those teams that a good majority of their roster from last year is coming back for this season, right? So in that regard, I do think Grayson James is turning out to be the best choice because of that experience. He's a junior, right? But the other quarterbacks, redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore, and an actual sophomore. I think there is some talent here with the rest of the quarterbacks in the position, and I will say, I wish I was able to go to more summer practices that you, Kevin and Jonny have, though. I will say I appreciate all your coverage with the videos on social media and whatnot. I've been getting information from that, but Keon Jenkins is absolutely the fan favorite at this point because of his career so far in Miami Central and the numbers he put up and the accolades he was able to bring in. But he's a freshman, all right? And a freshman is always at a disadvantage to someone who's either in their third or fourth seasons because they know the playbook well. They know the coaching staff well. Granted, it's a relatively new coaching staff, but they know what it's like to go up against these tough opponents. And if FIU was taking on the University of Maine week 1 to begin the season, you could make a case to maybe, all right, let's try out Keon Jenkins or let's try out Amari Jones or give Carlson a chance. But
not for the
fact, the fact that it's Louisiana Tech, which, FIU had that great win last season, but the couple of years before that, they got smoked by Louisiana Tech, all right? Last year was an awesome matchup, an awesome game. I believe we were all there.
I was not there.
That was the most exciting game of the year. That was
the
overtime
most exciting
win.
game of the year. It's up there with Bryant, right? But I would say experience matters, especially with who FIU will take on in Louisiana Tech. So I would personally go with Grayson as sort of the safe bet. And I'm not just saying that because we've had him on the show and he was a super cool dude. But I mean, biases aside, experience does matter a lot here.
Yeah, with what I'll say is, Keon has, for the most part, he's been pretty good, but he's not looked the greatest either at times throughout these scrimmages. They do a lot of scrims, and man, there's times where he just looks lost. And I know some of these staff members are going to be watching this, but man, he's throwing interceptions. There was a time where he threw back-to-back picks to the second stringers. I believe he threw a pick 6. But then there's times like he did, and that video was posted on the FIU Football Twitter, I believe. The Josiah Meeman catch that was thrown by Keon Jenkins.
That's up.
That's up. Yeah, that was the play there. But then you look at Grayson. Grayson looks so much more comfortable in this offense. And I was telling Jonny, like, man, I think Coach Mack should just name Amari the starter. Make it clear as day who is your starting quarterback, and then figure out who's coming after Grayson. Because this is something very interesting that Eric said when we had him on the podcast, that how long is it going to take until Coach Mack and the rest of that FIU staff feels the pressure to bring in the Miami legend, Keon Jenkins, in? You're going to have his family there. That's evident. You're going to have more family there who's friends with him. They're going to want to see Keon. If Grayson begins to struggle and FIU starts at 0-2, which I don't think that's the case. I don't really think it should be the case.
No.
You're at a point where you need to rebound quick, because FIU set with high expectations, and they've been talking. They want to go to They want to go to the bowl game, and I think that's the expectation that we've seen. Conference USA got a little bit weaker. They lost some big names: FAU, UTSA. Still some good names in there, but you also have Jacksonville State, which isn't very good. Sam Houston isn't very good. Maine isn't very good. And I know what you're going to say, Jake. And in 2020, yes, they lost, but it's a different coach, different staff. So. Right. I do believe FIU should go with Grayson as the starter, and it should be backed up by none other than Keon. And I think Jonny and I have spoken about this before, that it's pretty surprising that someone like Hayden Carlson hasn't entered the transfer portal, given how he's old. He's probably the oldest quarterback there when it comes to age and time being there. I believe obviously extra eligibility has helped them out a lot with COVID and a lot more. But I would say that Hayden should probably go in the transfer portal. He would get a good shot somewhere else, and he would start.
The transfer portal giveth, and the transfer portal taketh away. And if Hayden sees that there's not another D1 school that's immediately wanting a player like Carlson, because at this point, a few weeks to go until college football starts, I feel like most teams' rosters have some sort of formality on what they want to look like. But I see what you're saying there. But I'm sure Hayden has given some thought about it, but at this point, it's going to be tough to immediately find a school that will take his services. Now, I don't want to scout too much on Louisiana Tech yet. We can save that for a future episode before that week 0 game. But Louisiana Tech is in a completely opposite situation than FIU, who has their veteran quarterback player in Grayson James. Louisiana Tech's quarterback last year, Parker McNeil, graduated, right? So they have to pretty much start from scrap on the quarterback.
They brought in a
position.
guy. They brought in a guy.
They brought in a bunch of players, right? But now they don't really have as much experience in the quarterback position as they did last year. Because McNeil last year, he put up some numbers, right? 18 touchdowns, 1,900 yards. He looked good at times. Obviously, he had a great game against FIU. He just came up short there in the end. But I don't know if there are mind games that Coach McIntyre wants to do in that.
Yeah, I'll tell you him. The quarterback will for them.
Yeah,
LA Tech's quarterback will be Hank Bachmer. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Bachmeyer.
He was a Boise. Yes,
yeah.
He was a Boise State transfer 3-year quarterback there. He's going to be coming for LA Tech. I was listening to the G5 podcast today, and that is who will be their starter. It will be Grayson versus him if Grayson's named the quarterback. I mean, I do want to get Johnny's thoughts, though. Do you think Grayson should be the starter?
I think based on, him being the starter last year and what we've seen with him and, improving himself a lot and being under David Yo's offense, and you can see the relationship he's built with a lot of the receivers. He's a veteran guy. He's somebody like you really depend on. And I think, deserves to get the starting 9. And I think it's a perfect week 0 opening game, because usually you get the week 1 games against, the FCS schools, but you're starting the year out against an FBS school in your conference. Yeah. That's a perfect game to see the test of what FIU will have.
That's going to be a huge game. That's the thing. And I'm not going to, you're not going to hear this often, but this is a huge game for FIU. This is like probably their biggest game of the season when you look at it. It's starting the season, but you're playing a Conference USA team. You need to win Conference USA games, and this is the perfect team to do it against. A team that you went into double overtime with last season. Not surprising it's on national television.
And
sorry, go Johnny.
I was going to say, you got that, and then you have Maine next week, because you have a chance for FIU. They can start out 2-0. That's a very possible factor for FIU to start 2-0. And obviously after that, you got more, interesting matchups. But for FIU, they could really start off on a good note, but it really depends on how that week 0 game is against La Tech, which I think is a perfect matchup with these two teams. And I'm excited to see how that plays out in 3 weeks.
Yeah. And let's not beat around the bush here, right? There is no game this season that is a gimme game. Now, I wouldn't even say the game against the University of Maine is like a freebie. It's not, right? We saw how FIU struggled and almost lost. They were a 2-point conversion away from losing to FCS Bryant last season, right? So no game here is an easy get for FIU, but Louisiana Tech, at least I think we could say, at least for right now, because again, Conference USA is in a weird spot, but as far as talent goes in this conference, Louisiana Tech is one of the upper echelon teams, I would say, along with North Texas, Liberty, and Western Kentucky, which, surprise, FIU has to play all those teams this season. So to get a win against Louisiana Tech to begin your year, it would absolutely feel great for the direction of this program, because right after you get a 2-game homestand against Maine and North Texas the week after. So it would just be a great way to start the season. The last thing I'll say about Grayson before we move on is that Grayson talked about it himself when we had him on the show, and we've talked about this before. I don't think we have completely seen the potential of Grayson James in a college football game this season because of how this team has, especially the offensive line, has battled through injuries and has battled through questionable coaching decisions in the past and has battled through all of that. So if FIU can actually begin the season with a healthy offensive line and healthy weapons around Grayson James, then we can finally see the caliber of him. And he has shown instances last season where he looked to be an amazing quarterback for this team. And can we see that against Louisiana Tech? I think absolutely we can.
And I think we tapped the potential was that Charlotte game, threw for 300 yards, ran for 2 touchdowns. That was a game right there where you saw Grayson and his potential. And obviously, even the La Tech game was a big one for him, the Bryan game as well. But I think with Grayson, we saw a lot of, the flashes of what he can do. And obviously, it was, season, with the offensive line and their factor. I think this year is with you have Grayson back at center. I think you'll see a lot of more confidence in him and itself. And I think it's a great improvement. I think it just shows for the character of the team. You bring back a guy in Grayson who wants to prove himself even more. And I think you said it, Jake, the best. we have so much we have left to see of him. I'm excited to see what he brings, in 2023.
And I was talking to Grayson about it, and I told him, I said, how much do you think the healthy offensive line is going to help you? Because as you both mentioned, this team was hampered by injuries. There were times this past season where they did not have enough guys to practice. It was that bad. They were down a lot of players, not only in the offensive line, but Tyrese, I believe, was down for a little bit. Chris Mitchell was down for a little bit. You had a lot of guys down, and this time around, you're getting the week one fully healthy team. Your only real significant injury is your running back, Flex Joseph. But
yeah,
I will say, and we'll talk. Actually, I do want to talk about the running backs later. But with Grayson, he said he knows it. He's super pumped to finally have a fully healthy team, and I do think it should be Grayson. Now, I do want to ask you both: who do you think your backup should be? Because obviously, the backup will play a big role in this season. How would you go about the quarterback depth chart? And just quickly to mention who's on that depth chart. Obviously, Amani Jones is injured. So you have Grayson, Hayden, Keywan Jenkins, you have Chase Street, and you have Zachary Waters, who is a Boca product freshman. He hasn't been taking too much reps, I could tell you that personally. I think he took one scrimmage rep, and aside from that, he's just been working on drills. So, Jake, who would you go with as your depth chart?
I would need to do a bit more research into this before I can give a concrete answer. But off the top of my head, I'd say Grayson 1. I'd say Hayden 2. I'd say Keon 3. I'd say the battle for third is super tough. Going to be super tough between Keon and Shaden. And Zachary. You can throw Zachary in there. But I do think the backup should be Hayden because, again, he has the experience. He's put up numbers in games in the past. He's relatively familiar with the playbook as just like Grayson. So I'd say 1-2 is Grayson, then Hayden, and then the battle for third is going to be an interesting one that I absolutely cannot decide until we see more practice and see what these guys can really do. But I think Keon would be a pretty good quarterback number 3.
Also, before Johnny goes, shout out to the NFL. They're back today. I forgot. Jets versus Browns, I believe, is the matchup on the Hall of Fame game. So shout out to that. All right, Johnny, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, definitely shout out. Glad NFL's back too. If I'm going Grayson number 1, I'm still, it's still hard to decide. I think if you go based on the snaps that we've seen, you would say Keywan's number 2 and Hayden's 3. But look, we're already now, a little bit over a weekend, of practice. It's still hard.
Johnny, I mean, yeah, but there's practices we haven't seen.
That's true. I mean, overall, they're only really a week into practices. I think for me, you put Grayson first. I think between, the backup spot, I think based on snaps that I've seen in person, you put Keewan 2, Hayden 3, but you never know. But the thing about it is there's a lot of depth in this quarterback group, and, and there's a lot of excitement as well. So interesting to see the battle. But right now we'll see how it tests out. But Grayson, I think, is definitely deserving to be a starter this year.
Yeah, I do think, and it's not even that Grayson's outperformed anyone because, to be honest with you, I mean, the offense has been a little bit of a disappointment throughout most of these summer camps that I've been at, and it's not really one side showing much better than the other. No one's outperformed anyone, to be honest with you, aside from, I would say, Eric Rivers has really stood out, and we'll talk about him because I do want to go a little bit more into other positions, especially that wide receiver room, which has been hyped up a lot this season and for a good reason. I would go Grayson 1, I would go Keywan 2, Hayden 3, and Cheery 4. But man, it would not surprise me if Peary is the third stringer because I don't know why FIU is not using Hayden that much in the reps throughout camp thus far. But Hayden hasn't looked too bad either. He's looked pretty good. I mean, he's a Georgia Tech product, a JUCO guy, come in just for an opportunity. I'm actually gonna have an article on him on Athlon very soon because he's from Nicaragua. He has Nicaraguan roots, so cool there. We'll talk a little bit about those on that article. But yeah, and then Zachary Waters, I believe he'll just be a scout team guy, to be honest with you, in this first year. A guy who David Yost could really develop. Actually, and I do like that. So yeah, I'll do that for now. But I do want to talk about the running back room because, as I mentioned, Flex Joseph is out for the year. He tore his ACL. He's been on the field. I wrote an article on him and how he's been able to help this team despite being injured. Been super vocal, been with the running backs a lot. And that's where I want to go to. Shamari Lawrence and Keyshawn Owens will be your main backs this season.
Yeah.
Johnny, how do you assess the room right now? I think those are the main two guys. Obviously, I think there are other players that have been taking a decent amount of reps and actually look pretty good. I'm gonna have to look through the name, but I want to talk because Shamari Lawrence has been the main back thus far with for Grayson, and that's where I look at it. When I look at these scrimmages, you look at who's playing with Grayson James, because for now we think he's gonna be the starter. So if it's if Grayson James, you look who's playing around him, and that's what I've been looking at. And it's usually been kind of the starters, Chris Mitchell, Jalen Bracey, Josiah, and then you're Shamari Lawrence. So just assess the room a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean Shamari Lawrence, who was at South Dakota and then comes back to South Florida, where he's from. Went to Blanche Ely, lives in Pompano. He's a big guy, 6'2", 200. He's really, really strong. He's a big back in the group, and obviously Flex was great last year. You expect him to be a starter. Unfortunately, he's out for the year. But Shamari, I think for him, a local kid that had some flash at South Dakota, I'm really excited to see what he can bring. He's a big size guy, which I think could help getting down the field, breaking tackles and of that nature. You talk about Keyshawn Owens. Another Miami guy who had some good opportunities, a couple snaps last year. Didn't get a whole lot. I definitely expect a little more of touches this year. And adding in Antonio Patterson, who was part of the 2022 class, who kind of bulked up a little bit. He's somebody I think can make some noise as well in this running back room. And I think it's all open because you don't really have a starter and flex, but it gives opportunities for tons of guys, whether it's Shamari, Owens, Patterson, guys down the line to get some touches. And I think you see Lawrence as a starter, but I think that it's a lot of opportunities for different guys to come in and make a role for themselves, and a running back room that always at FIU has depth. And I think this year you'll see that adding in this year.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about the running back position is that, boy, it sucks losing Flex Joseph for the season, because something that we saw last year was that Flex Joseph was a good enough a running back to pretty much be the main guy for an entire game, getting the ball in his hands and then making plays. Even with an offensive line that we talked earlier was battered and bruised, he still found holes that he could get through and then do some plays on that end. I would like to see FIU football adopt a 1-2 man style of rushing, where they could go one rusher and make a play, take him out, put in another rusher and make another play when the time is needed. Because to have that depth, to have that once again, it comes back to experience. To have that experience and ability of Lexington Joseph just ripped away from you, it sucks. But if you were going to have a 1-2 of Lawrence and Patterson or Lawrence, I think Lawrence has to be in this conversation no matter what. I think it's Lawrence and either Owens or Patterson. That's my stance on the running back position right now. If you were to adopt a 1-2 punch system for your rushing game that consisted of two backs that just went ham with the ball, especially in games where the passing game just is not working, and there's a lot of good secondaries in Conference USA that FIU is going to have to battle with, Liberty being one of the best there is. So to adopt a tough nose running game with multiple backs involved in one game, I'm not a coach, but I would like to see that being adopted, especially with the loss of Flex.
I do want to say with the running backs, that was a big issue last season, just getting a run game going, especially with how poor the offensive line play was, given obviously injuries being the big factor. I do want to see how much they implement the run game into the offense this season. I've seen a lot more pass plays than run game throughout these practices. I will say it's been kind of an even, but more passing. And obviously we've seen a lot more action from the tight ends, Josiah Meehan, Jackson McDonald is what we've been seeing a lot more of. That's the usage of the tight end. They did not use much of their tight ends last season. You can look at Rivaldo Fairweather stats, and most of them are juiced because towards the end of the season, that's when they began really getting to him. And specifically that Middle Tennessee game where I believe Josiah and Rivaldo both got touchdowns and were, you use the two tight end system, which is something I really want to see Coach Yost use. I want to also shout out TJ Snowden, running back, sophomore, one of the transfers. Extremely, extremely fast guys, what we've heard. And I've seen it at practice. He looks really good. I also want to go to Jordan Clemens. He's a freshman. He's been taking a good amount of reps. Jose Corbo also taking a lot of reps.
Miami guy.
Yeah. A lot of Cutler Bay. Yeah. And then you have Shabor and Demps also taking a lot of reps. But those guys, I would assume those guys, again, I think they're going to be mainly scout team guys.
Yeah.
Mainly not getting much play. I think they'll redshirt. I really think the room's going to be Lawrence, Owens, Patterson, and Snowden. I think that's what it'll end up being. Especially Snowden. I think that's a name that I think a lot of us need to keep an eye out for.
I'm still wondering though if he's a possibility to be on kick returner as well. That's one thing.
Returner,
yeah, that's the one
thing.
We
lost Tyrese,
and then obviously EJ Wilson and Flex were there, so I could see a guy like Snowden taking that spot this year. But definitely we'll find out more. At practice coming days.
One last thing I'd like to talk about with the running back position is that no matter who has the ball in their hands, I really want to see some more creative play calling when it comes to how they run the ball, because there were a lot of instances last season where FIU would begin drives or begin first downs with a draw play that would net maybe 1 or 2 yards, and then they'd be stuck with a 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 8. That happened way more times that I or anyone else was happy with. So no matter who gets the ball, I'd like to see them come up with more creative moments in a drive to hand the ball off, maybe on more 2nd and shorts or 3rd and inches, but to just give the running back the ball on 1st and 10 and just say good luck. I'm not a fan of that play call, regardless if it's college or professional. And FIU did that a lot last season, and shocker, they punted one of the most in all of Conference USA last season. So I'd really like the play calling for the running game to be much more creative.
Next room I want to talk about is the wide receiver room. Jonny and I have been really diving into this room because obviously the big loss is Tyrese. He goes to Maryland, transfers. That was kind of coming. It was a little bit. It was very good how it ended there with him. He didn't play the final game of the year. Really no injury there. But this room is going to be led by Chris Mitchell, Jalen Bracey, and Dean Patterson. 3 different leadership styles. I've spoken to all 3. They have really been trying to make this room get tighter. Jalen Bracey is a big vocal guy in that room. Then you have Chris Mitchell, not a big talker. He's more of a lead by example. And then you have Dean, who is vocal but leads by example. He's kind of both of them. And then, but I don't want to really talk about them. As good as they are and as good as I think they'll be this season with a great quarterback in Grayson, I want to talk about Ross Fournette and Eric Rivers. 2 names probably 95% of the FIU fan base has never heard of. Because given Ross Fournette was a special teams guy last season and Eric Rivers is new.
So Fournette, he made some plays. He was a guy that he would come in and make plays that kind of would rally a team around. I know what the big one was. It was a 4th down in the Bryant game, and essentially was a bit of the final play. He tried to catch a pass midfield and got hit with penalty on Bryant. That kind of helped propel FIU to the comeback. But we talked about Ross. He's a guy that out of the blue he can make a big play, create a spark for the team, and then you also added Eric Rivers, who Coach Schmack talked about. Rivers has done a walk-on for Memphis. Coach Schmack talked about he was a DB originally, Eric Rivers, and Coach Schmack said, "Hey, I think Eric should be a wide receiver." And what do you know? This coming year, he transfers to FIU. He becomes a receiver, and every week we keep hearing great things about Eric Rivers. He's a grinder. He does his job. He really executes very well. And he's somebody that you talk about the offensive side of the ball. He can come out of nowhere and make some nice plays for you. And I'm excited to see what he could bring, to this really very good and a lot of depth in this receiving core.
I do think aside from Bracey, Rivers could really be that slot guy moving forward. He's been playing a lot in the slot with Grace, and he's been a really good red zone guy. And then continuing that, and then Ross Fournette, someone who played only special teams last season. I don't know if he played a little. I don't know how much offense he played. I wasn't fully into this team last season, but this season, obviously, you look at it. Pause. With Fournette, man, he's been very, very impressive, and it sucks at the same time because he's been getting 2nd team reps. He has not been playing with Grayson James. He's been mainly with Kewan and Hayden. And I really, really want to see him play with someone like Grayson. I want to see him move up in the depth chart. I do think he is this wide receiver 4 type guy. And now I'll ask both of you, because obviously last season Tyrese was the wide receiver 1, but this season there's no clear one. You can make the case it's Chris Mitchell. I know Jake. We were talking with Eric, and he was mentioning I think back in the years there was no real clear wide receiver 1, but there were an array of targets that quarterbacks had in the past for FIU.
Yeah, but by the way, to answer your question, Fournette did not play that much in the actual wide receiver position for FIU. He only in 12 games of work, he only had 9 catches for 55 yards, no touchdowns. But yeah, that's a bit that to lose a player like Chambers, you pretty much have to take the wide receiver position and flip it on its head, because you have that similar to Flex, that is a big player to lose out the drop of a hat. And of course, we wish the best of luck to Tyrese Chambers in his new journey. But yeah, FIU has always had that sort of offense where there was no real defined wide receiver that could immediately just carry the team on their back the way that T.Y. Hilton did way back in the day, but that was way before any of us followed FIU football, right? So FIU's offense has always been whoever can do the best job and catch the ball when the play is demanded. Yeah, they're going to be looked on, but the wide receiver room is interesting because, again, you don't have that cornerstone player anymore. But I gotta say, I do like the idea of a player like Smith being the leader of the team. But at the same time, I would be surprised if during the course
Jake, you're cutting out like really bad. Jake, you're cutting out horribly. We're gonna remove you because you're completely frozen. You're frozen. Your Wi-Fi is really not good, and I would say restart. So Johnny and I will continue the conversation while you reset.
Oh yeah, I can't see his picture anymore.
I removed him because he's completely frozen. So I guess what he was trying to say is that back in the day when he covered, there was no real clear wide receiver one. Johnny can make the case as well. I believe
it was more, everyone kind of did their job. Everyone kind of got some big catches.
Jake,
we're good.
Can you guys hear and see me?
You're a little blurry, but
we can hear you, but yeah, a little blurry.
Do you want to leave and join again?
Yeah. Give me a sec.
The show must go on.
Oh, he's good now. No, he's not. All right. So the other room I want to talk about is the tight end room. Obviously, they lost Rivaldo, but you have Jackson McDonald, who was kind of more of a long snapper last season. You have
Coach Mack really has a lot of high praise for Jackson McDonald.
Yeah, he was, and I thought he wouldn't, because McDonald seems like McDonald is a good player, but he's one of those guys who I've seen kind of struggle at times throughout summer.
Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, part of the money.
Okay, good. Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. There's just not a lot for me to say really about the wide receiver position at the moment, because there's still so many questions that have yet to be answered. Is FIU going to adopt a wide receiver one position in which they are designed to carry the team on their back, and if they're meant to be the receiver that defenses look up to, and they'll attempt to double team, which will create plays available for wide receiver 2 or 3 to really get the ball moving on offense, which is something that we haven't really seen for the last couple of seasons. Even when we had Tyrese Chambers, he had some great games, but some of the biggest plays of Tyrese Chambers' career at FIU were the random long balls that went 50, 60, 70 yards out of the blue, the desperation third down plays that, Johnny, I know we've seen quite a bit a couple of seasons ago when Tyrese really stacked his passing yard numbers. I'll keep my thoughts on the wide receiver room short. I like what I've seen with Mitchell and Patterson, Hooker as well. If any of them turn out to be an amazing receiver that can fill in the shoes of Tyrese Chambers, then go for it. But that's a tough task.
Yeah, and actually another guy who stood out, Mike Jackson. This guy is super fast. He's probably the fastest wide receiver in.
That's a big name.
That's the
Mike
name
Jackson,
I want to bring up.
And the freshman too, Luby Maurice, Kyle McNeil.
Luby Maurice may have made the play of the summer. I want to say the other day. 50-50 ball. I believe I want to say it was Grayson who threw it. It was either Grayson or Kiwan. Amazing catch by Luby Maurice. The one thing that Coach Jay and Coach Mack have been emphasizing with Luby Maurice, the incoming freshman, I want to say, is the fact that this guy is a big 50-50 ball guy. You lob it up, and he may or may not catch it, but most of the time he will make the play and he will make that catch. And I believe he will get a lot of playing time this upcoming season.
Yeah. So how about Rowdy Beers for the tight end position, eh?
Ooh, Rowdy Beers. Yeah, that's another one too.
They've been solid, yeah.
They've been solid, and the fact that they brought in Rocky as well, that's all of a sudden you have a kind of fun battle similar to that of the Kelsey brothers in the NFL. Maybe I won't go that far because the Kelsey brothers in the NFL are absolutely amazing, but it is cool to see a story like that. Initially, Rowdy Beers was trending simply because of his name, right? But now you throw in Rocky Beers as well, and wow, all of a sudden you have another story to go on top of what social media has already loved in a name like Rowdy Beers. I saw somewhere on social media this guy made a starting college football lineup was based on the funniest names by position, and of course, Rowdy Beers.
I think Rocky made it, not Rowdy.
Yeah, well, Rocky. We got Rocky and Rowdy on the team. So
right,
the Beer brothers.
Mm-hmm.
We got.
So, I don't know how much we're allowed to mention it, but Rocky has been limited. I will keep it as that. He's been playing a lot, but he's been limited. I believe Adrian Cole was the other one. I don't think he's limited anymore. Obviously, I don't know how much injuries we're allowed to talk here, but obviously Jonny knows that firsthand. But yeah, some guys have been banged up a little bit, but it hasn't been too serious. Only ones that are obviously in red, which means no action, and obviously once fans are able to come and they'll see who is red and who isn't. It's Armani Jones and Flex. So those are red. They're completely out for the year. Obviously, I was given Achilles for Jones and ACL for Flex. But anything else we want to touch up on football, because we're already 41 minutes in, and
I knew the football discussions would take quite some time, but
we don't have the defense either. We didn't talk defense.
Oh my god!
Right. The defense position has a bunch of stories.
We got to talk about the defense.
I guess we're gonna have to spend another 40 minutes talking about the defense because I will say the defense has been pretty impressive for the most part. Obviously, they brought in a lot of guys who knew the 3-4 defense very well, and that's something that FIU struggled with, making that adjustment to the 3-4. Obviously, new philosophy. We spoke to Coach DeWitt. He was very pumped about the.
Was awesome.
It was an awesome interview. He did say that the safety position is up in the air. CJ Christian was there last year. He made some huge plays. I believe it was Demetrius Hill at safety position as well. Dorian Hall, obviously, key losses there, especially with Hill and Hall. Those are the big time losses there for FIU. But then you look at what they did at the defensive line. You bring in Cloud Larkins, who's I'm a big fan of. He's been very impressive. The Whitman spoke very well about him. You bring in Jack Daly, someone else who's I think it's a zero nose tackle. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jonny.
Yeah, from Bryant.
Yeah, from Bryant. You bring in JT Anderson for the cornerback position, someone who's been standing out a lot, and then you have Hezekiah Masses on there. So he's been on a couple preseason teams so far. Jeremy Pasmore also, I believe he was just nominated on the watch list for a trophy award.
Yeah, it's for for leadership and community service. I know that he's a coach in this time as well, so that's an awesome honor to have.
Yes, it is the Werfel Trophy watch list.
Okay,
so that's what it is, and yeah, I mean
Donovan Manuel too.
Donovan Manuel, the leader of this defense.
Yeah.
I'm expecting a big year from Donovan. I mean, when you look at the accumulated stats from each player in the leaderboards, it's Gathan Bernadette, and then you have Donovan Manuel. Basically, on every type of linebacker thing, it's Bernadette. It's Donovan Manuel right behind him. And then Avery Huff, the University of Miami transfer. That's a big acquisition for them. I believe he was a four-star player, going into the recruitment process for high school. He comes to FIU. I spoke to him. I did an article on him. Someone who is very, very, very excited and for the opportunity. He did not get much playing time at UM. I believe he went through 3 coaches, couldn't get an opportunity. And he's very excited. He says that the 3-4 defense was made just for him. So he's in a great position for FIU. And I think, and Elijah Anderson Taylor. That's what it is.
Let's not count out one of my favorite defensive players from last season, which I think is going to have a big boost this year. Is going to be Passmore, Jeremy Passmore on that defensive line, and of course, defensive line pretty much has had a makeover with a bunch of new transfers. But you have a player like Passmore who, in some games, has absolutely done a dominant job just wrecking the field. That game against Florida Atlantic last year, he was a dog in that game, right? So I'd like to see a player like Passmore absolutely tear up this season, just sort of elevate his game. And if that defensive line is scary and can hunt the quarterback all day, then that's going to give him the offense for FIU better field position on average, because I can recall so many offensive series from FIU last year, beginning at the 5, beginning at the 10. If they can push the opposing offense back, leading the FIU offense to begin their series at the 30 to 40 or midfield, oh my God, Grayson James would be licking his chops. He'd love that. So, yeah, I'd love to see players like Passmore do just that.
Yep. So I think we can move on to baseball. We kind of obviously
should we take a break, Kevin?
Oh, you're right. We have news break.
We do have a news
45
break.
minutes in, too.
45 minutes. I knew ahead of time the football talk would be monumental because there was so much to talk about that we haven't. But yeah, welcome to Jake's News Break, your source for some of the latest news in FIU athletics and just FIU in general. So let's start off with FIU baseball. The Bethune-Cookman Wildcats baseball club has hired former FIU infielder and volunteer assistant coach Derek Cartaya as their brand new hitting coach and infield specialist. After 5 years with FIU, Cartaya ranks 18th all-time in program history with 195 career hits and looks to expand his coaching career at Bethune-Cookman, who finished last season with a 33-27 record. Next up, FIU Beach Volleyball has announced their brand new head coach, Terry Del Conte. She will join the Panthers as a former coach of the UAB Blazers and Missouri State, and is the second coach in the history of the program. Del Conte was also a former player at Missouri State and has 2 NCAA tournament appearances under her belt as a player. Last season, the beach volleyball team for FIU finished with a 20-17 record and appeared in both the conference and NCAA tournaments. Finally, here's a weird one. An FIU student and soon-to-be graduate is making an impact on families all over South Florida. Gabriela Rojas, who herself is a mother, has looked to help other families with no access to diapers for their children by joining the Miami Diaper Bank, a nonprofit dedicated to collecting and distributing clean diapers to low-income families and homeless children. Rojas is an executive director of the program and has recently launched a mobile diaper bank in Miami-Dade County. It's a pink van full of diapers and resources to assist families in needs. It's rolling all over the county. So congratulations to Rojas for some innovation there, and best of luck to her in doing her very unique job. And yeah, that was your look at my news break. So one thing I'd like to say about football that I think I'd love to see everybody else at is the that upcoming Practice Then Monty's event that's going to be going on. What day is that, Kevin?
I am posting it up on the screen right now. It is August 12th. So actually, we're doing a good job by promoting this because not many people are aware FIU is hosting a fan fest, is what it is called. It is on August 12th. The practice will run from 7 to 10. And a couple hours later, we will all be at Monty's, where you can catch Jonny, Jake, myself. I believe the Alumni Club is the one hosting this event. So you will have possibly Coach Ballard, soccer coach.
Coach Mack, for sure.
Coach Mack, for sure. Maybe even a couple players will join. Maybe former alumni of FIU. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Jonathan Cypress is there. Maybe Rajah Bell.
Maybe some future
free food
guests of the podcast.
Free food, open bar, $30 entry.
$30 entry.
Very, very, very much worth it. I would say when you get as much food as you want and as much drinks for my folks that are 21 plus. So
yeah, FIU always does great jobs with these fundraisers, but right, like
I will say, despite the steep price, it's still a very good,
it's a great deal.
Value.
Yeah, I think it's a cool,
absolutely.
It's a cool thing because we remember the Paws Up tour back in May, kind of like it's a good opportunity to network and talk.
I would say this is even better than the Paws Up tour.
I think it's a cool opportunity to talk with other FIU alumni or students,
especially because it's on the heels of a practice session, which, by the way, they're going to, of course, let fans show up and watch it, and then even get autographs afterwards, right? So that's going to be super cool.
Hey, you may get some autographs from future NFL stars.
You may get some autographs from us.
Those are worth a lot more right now.
Yeah, I mean, but no, but it should be a super fun day. And again, free food, some awesome drinks, and you get to talk to so many people from FIU, regardless of if you're a student or an alumni or just you want something cool to do on that day on August 12th. I think it's going to be a lights out day.
Lights out! Lights out!
I knew that was coming.
Where's the video? I was waiting for the video.
You put it.
I just played it.
Oh, I didn't see it, unfortunately.
You didn't see it?
Oh, well.
Yeah. But yes, we'll all be there.
I'll
so
have to watch it back.
August 12th, right? I believe the Monty's event starts at 3 o'clock, I believe.
3 to 6. From 3 to 6 is the Monty's at Coconut Grove.
Yeah.
I believe parking is pretty simple there. There's a decent sized parking lot in front of it, so it shouldn't be a big issue. Obviously, we highly encourage you all to show up and show out.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to say hey to the Paws Up, if you want to say hey to the Paws Up crew, we'll be there.
We'll be there, and we have a lot in the works. So hopefully by then we have that worked out. We have something big coming.
Wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. So all right, I want to talk some FIU baseball,
right?
Because there are a lot of moves that went down. Jonny, I will let you.
Before we talk about that, let's talk about Ryan Guida, MVP of the Valley.
Right.
Hell yes.
He may be watching.
I think he had 450. Struck out like 8 times and over 130 at bats. Dude was back-to-back MVPs in the Valley League and proved himself. This guy's gonna have a big year with FIU. So shout out to the hit machine, Mr. Guida.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah. So what new transfers have caught your eye, Mr. Kevin Barral, for the?
I think the one that has very much caught my eye, and I'm gonna look for the list that Jonny gave me here. It is D2 stud Jeff LeCurry from Florida Southern. This man is the future of FIU baseball, and I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna let Jonny speak on him because I believe he saw him in person at the Florida League.
Yeah, so the Florida League, which I was interning this summer. Jeff LeCurry, who played at Florida Southern, which is in the Sunshine State Conference, hit over 320 there, and was known to be one of the best hitters in this Florida League. Played with one of the teams and was just having a monster year. An unbelievable contact hitter, and announced that he was transferring to FIU. And I think it's a really big get for the Panthers. He has shown he can hit, obviously D2, but he can hit against D1 pitchers. And for a team that needs outfielders, he can play in the corners, in center, at first base, but I think it's much needed for FIU. Obviously, Alex Sanchez has left. Mike Rosario has left, but I love LeCurry. The addition, I'm not saying this because I've seen him play. I'm saying this because he's a really good addition.
Well, I mean, you've seen him play.
Well, you saw him play,
yeah.
So you have a good understanding of
exactly
the player he is.
I like the swing. It's a very it's a very good compact swing, and I think a lot of fans will be excited to watch him play come February.
Yeah, and then just to read out the stats very quickly, with Florida Southern, obviously D2 school, but still D2 not easy to play in. 345, 389, 571, 959 with 10 home runs, 45 RBIs, 9 stolen bases. The strikeout is not the greatest. 21 strikeouts, again, 9 walks. Obviously, that's something you could work on. But what Jonny was saying, the Florida State League, 344, 380, 505, 885 with 4 home runs, 16 RBIs, and 11 strikeouts, 5 walks. So definitely something that'll help FIU. And when you start projecting this lineup a little bit, he's probably going to be your starting right fielder, I want to say. He also plays first base, but he's been playing in the outfield, man.
I would say he learned a lot in the Florida League. He played was in the outfield. So he can kind of, be more versatile. So I would expect either the corner of left or in center. That's what I can definitely see with Corey.
Yeah, and something that Rich Whitten himself talked about when he was on the podcast was, he's been keeping a sharp eye out in the Florida League. He's been looking for some of the best talent available that'd like to play for FIU. And as you mentioned, this transfer player sounds like someone that could absolutely make an impact on offense. Because FIU, God, they lost a lot of offensive talent from graduation. I mean, to have Alex Sanchez just gone, like just poof, he's not an FIU Panther anymore. That's a tough shoe to
That one
fill.
was tough. That we were there for that final. I don't know.
We
if
were. It was emotional, right?
It was tough.
Just seeing him take his last at bat, and I mean, we have seen Alec put up some absolutely insane stat lines game per game, and of course, Jonny and I will never forget calling that walk off RBI against St. Thomas in Minnesota a couple of seasons ago. That was awesome. That was a great memory. Wasn't it, Jonny?
It was. No, it was. Okay. I'm right now. I'm just kind of taking it all in right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, you've been putting in the work with the Florida League, so you've seen as much talent as there is to see that a team like FIU could really look forward to.
And also got to add one more name, Jaquan Smith, who's on my team, Sanford. He's coming to FIU. A nice guy who I think will probably play in the corner of right field, who has a speed, has a cannon of an arm. He stole over 20 bases in this league. And I think he's a guy who, with the speed, he's going to be top of the order. I think he's a threat to steal bases a ton in 2024.
Yep. And the other name, all right, so we'll just go down the list Jonny sent me. The next one is Nelson Rivera out of USF. He is a catcher. That is a position of need for FIU big time. Obviously, the main guy right now is Brendan Rooney. And aside from that, you lost, I believe, Craig Palladar, no longer with the team. He was a pretty good player for the most part. But this season with South Florida, USF, pretty down season, big down season for him. 206, 272, 284, 556, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs. Actually, that is a really bad season. Jesus Christ. But obviously, you get the guy behind the dish. You bring in some depth, much needed. Jonny, just talk to us a little bit about what FIU is getting in Rivera.
Yeah, I think you talked about it. It was a tough year for him last year, but in his freshman and sophomore year, he was really a catcher. He was named a watch list player for the Buster Posey Award, which is given to the top collegiate catcher. So he has shown he could be really good, and obviously a tough last year. But I think you come back to a new setting at FIU. I think could be a chance really for him to improve and to a catching position. Coach Wooden says you want a lot of depth there. So I like the addition, and it brings in another guy that you kind of expect that is off not a great year, but he's looking to bounce back. And we saw last year a lot of guys had tough years in their previous schools. They came here to do really well. Good example is Mike Rosario from Miami, goes to FIU and hits over 320 in his season. Yeah. So I can see a guy of his nature really having a good bounce back year if everything goes his way.
But Jonathan Mayer, the position I'm interested in the most to hear with these transfers is absolutely in the pitching category. So I want to know what upcoming pitchers. I know they have that player that was literally just drafted by the Marlins that intends. I think it's safe we can say this. He intends to play with FIU. What can you tell me about him and what he can bring to the table?
Yeah, I know. We talked with Coach, and he's a young freshman out of Pennsylvania that he could throw upper early 90s, low 90s, but he's throwing low 90s at the age of 18. You definitely think that if he progresses well at FIU and by junior year, he can throw near mid 90s as well. So I think it'll be a good development project for FIU. Kevin already discussed a lot about it in his article he wrote a couple weeks ago. Yeah, got drafted by the Marlins, which just shows.
You mean the one that's on the Paws Up page, our brand new website that we
haven't spoken about that on here.
Go and check it out.
We haven't spoken about it on here.
We haven't spoken that. Was that not the perfect segue to talk about it real quick? The Paws Up page, the brand new spot for all articles made by Kevin, Jonny, myself, and other interesting and noteworthy people that we're going to bring on. Not to mention an archive for all episodes of the Paws Up podcast. Yeah, it's a pretty cool site. You should go check it out.
It is Paws Up. It is, I believe, the pawsuppage.blog. So we will put that in the description.
We also have
video.
If you check any of our social medias, X, Instagram, or even Threads, if you're still using that somehow, we have the links to the website on our pages. So definitely go and check those out.
Yeah. All right. Tristan Dietrich, hit us, Jonny.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say you know more than me. I feel like a little bit. You're the Marlins guy, and I feel like you would have a better realm of. But what I said, he throws lower 90s. I think he's a good project for FIU.
I would say mid 90s.
Mid 90s.
I'll get you the Arsenal. He sent me the Arsenal.
Oh,
Let me find.
even better. We got the whole.
Because the Lord knows the Marlins could use some pitching, right?
Fastball. You're right. Lower 90s. Fastball 90-91. He touched 94 at the MLB Combine. Changeup of 84 to 86. Sweeping slider 78-79. Curveball 74-75. He hasn't thrown the curveball as his primary pitch in the past, but he's been working on it this summer. A pitch he really wants to incorporate. I think this guy could be a midweek starter this season. I would like to see him in that spot a couple times. But mainly, I think this guy's ceiling is conference Friday night starter for FIU.
And if you add, those are nice lefties. Ryan Kabarkis, Tristan Dietrich. I mean, I'm interested to see how that
probably works. I mean, you're getting a very young starting group in the weekend games. You would have probably Kabarkis, you would have Dietrich, and then you would have Pinheiro,
or even Kevin Martin. That's another name.
Kevin Martin as well, who was really good out of the bullpen. I think this team obviously has struggled with the bullpen, Johnny. You would say that firsthand. We were there for almost every single game this season. They struggled a lot in the bullpen. And I think that's the big thing. I would love to have Kevin Martin in the back end of the bullpen. I believe Jackson Ritchie is still there with FIU. So he would kind of help you in that department. I know he was a conference starter. That's where we got into that season.
Cam Knox as well is back.
Cam Knox as well. There was a couple of moments where this team struggled, but I do want to ask you about the other catcher. He was on your team, the River Rats.
Oh, yes. Jacob McKenzie.
He wasn't there for too long, but he was there.
He was there. He actually, by the end of the year, he had the highest batting average in the good amount of bats he's had. So we'll see with him. Obviously, a freshman, so you don't know based on how that works. But I like what I saw from him. He catched some really good pitchers in the league, so I'm excited to see him. So. Overall, I'm a big Stanford guy, so root for Jacob, root for Jaquan, but we'll see how everything falls into place come 2024. Feels like a long time away because we're not even into the regular slate of like soccer. So baseball is a long way far, but I mean, you got to be excited for baseball. That's the best part.
There's always a good story, especially because, both batting and pitching definitely took a hit at the end of this season with either the transfer portal or graduations, right? So there's always a brand new need for this baseball program, especially because they've been very consistent with even getting players drafted into the big leagues. Of course, we've seen that over the years. Of course, shout out Logan Allen, who has put up some pretty solid numbers in the big leagues for Cleveland. And
for Austin Shetton, he's about
to
come up very soon.
Oh my God, he's been really good. Yeah.
He's another Panther that could be called up soon. So yeah.
Wait, what is this? Why is this funny?
It's not funny.
All right, delete comments. We're not gay guys. All right, let's move on. All right, next guy I want to bring up, Chase Engelhard. He is a second baseman, shortstop, right fielder out of Tulane. He was on another really bad season. 211, 268, 344, 612 with 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. And then in Trenton, he actually hit a lot better there. 264, 371, 302, 673 with 7 RBIs and 8 walks. This was in the summer league. So obviously, I think it would be more of a filler for Dante Girardi, who entered the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have Steven Odina, who entered the transfer portal, and he is now with Arizona. And I think Arizona State. So we have to keep in mind, we talk about the big losses at FIU. We also have to talk about the big losses in baseball. Man, did they lose some guys? Traversio's gone. Ruben Carpio's gone. You also have Steven Odina. Dante Girardi, who was a really good player for FIU. He's also gone. I believe Larigo's also gone.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are gone. I think that's the point.
But
Costos is gone too.
Costos is gone. But I would say, you look at it, and obviously it sucks losing a lot of guys, but you definitely see now is Coach Wooden trying to build something that, he wants to start. And obviously last year, you had a lot of guys that, not were part of his recruiting class, but stayed here and played really well. But you kind of feel like, coming into year 2, it's you kind of feel like now it's going to be Witten's kind of build based on, the guys he recruited, the guys he brought in. So I'm excited to see what brings in year 2. And we talked about how great it was in year 1 with, the most wins or, beating the win total from 2022. So I think 2024, this will be another step in the right direction and trending towards, keep on building back to where this program used to be with Danny Price and what he brought and most wins in FIU baseball history.
Any other names you want to bring up, Jonny? Because I think we're hitting the hour marker. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, you guys.
We're way past the hour marker, Mr. Kevin.
Yeah.
Those are the main ones. A couple of names too that I'll bring in. The bottom two that I know that are coming to FIU: Keyshawn Fred out of Seminole State and Austin Deering out of State College of Florida. Keep an eye out on Keyshawn Fred. He was one of the best JUCO players in the nation. Hit over 10 home runs. He's a big guy. I think he'll be a big one. And another name I forgot to note, Alex Ula out of Miami College, was actually drafted in the 4th round a couple years ago by the Houston Astros, but instead is still playing college baseball. Was recruited at University of Florida, but now with FIU. He's a guy, a shortstop that I think will have a good year. A lot of talent, so I'm excited to see what he can bring as well to this Panther program.
So Keyshawn Fred, last season, and actually no, in 2023, 345, 543, 744, 1.179 with 20 home runs and 44 RBIs.
I'm telling you, this guy, Guida hit tons of home runs in the River.
He hit more than Guida.
I think this guy is a huge. Is it going to be a fun player to watch? I think it will be a very surprising player.
Probably. Where would you put him? Third base?
He's a on the corner. So I definitely think he'll be the starter.
Just like Jake is like shocked.
I did not. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that Kevin thought before this episode that there'd be like a 30-minute jaunt, and we've cracked the hour mark. But yeah, no, just the amount of depth that a team like FIU can generate as far as transfers and signings from some lower division colleges is super exciting, especially because there's still so much time before they even start to do practices and whatnot for baseball. So it's interesting to see the moves that Rich Witten has already made in his now going to be his second season as a coach. We saw ups and downs with how Witten has handled the team last year. So to see him bounce back and pretty much have total control in year number 2, I'm going to be interested to see how it plays out. But definitely. Personally, I think all of us can agree here. The pitching absolutely did leave FIU down in a lot of games where the offense actually was solid. Of course, they had that at least get one run in streak for a good chunk of the season that really wasn't broken off until like the very end, I believe.
It was with FAU.
Yeah, so that it was crazy how good the offense looked at times for FIU baseball last season. If they can get a pitching core that can actually work with the offense to keep the opposing team at bay, it'll be exciting to see. And will we finally see FIU knock off Miami in baseball?
They made it competitive, so
they made it extremely competitive.
I will say, lost a lot of talent. No Yo-Yo, no more Levinson. Yeah, they lost a lot of talent, so it's possible. I don't think UM is going to be that good this year.
We'll need to save our thoughts for FI for how the season is going to look, and I guess for some reason talk about Miami baseball as well when we get closer to the actual baseball season.
So just to wrap up here, I think because we're already going to hit an hour 20 very soon here. If we talk about soccer, we will get to 2-hour marker. So we're going to cut soccer. We'll post the schedule.
We're gonna need to bring in Liam Rooney for a discussion about soccer.
We'll bring in Liam. You know what? Let's get Liam on.
He's busy right now though with all the he's doing the reporting up.
Yeah, he's putting in the work in Tallahassee.
He's putting in the work. Yeah,
we'll
get Liam on very
soon.
soon.
We get Liam on.
We'll see if we could do a 2-episode a week type thing at some point to squeeze Liam on here. He's the FIU soccer guru. I mean, obviously, Jonny and I, we love FIU athletics, but man, do I not know a lot about FIU soccer. And you will probably help us out here.
How many people can say the same thing about Inter Miami before they got messy?
I will say, I was a day one guy. I was a day one Inter Miami fan.
I think,
you've been an Inter Miami fan your whole life.
I'll say this.
Yes.
We all live in South Florida. We're all day one people. We're not bandwagons. We all lived here. We all, we saw the team. I don't care if we didn't watch a game. I'm a day one. Okay, I'm a day one.
Of course.
I've been a day one.
I'm not going to admit that I haven't watched a game, but I'm a day one of Inter Miami.
I've watched a lot of. I watched when the first season came up, I watched almost every game, and I actually have I have a picture of an Inter Miami player on my wall. So Robbie Robinson, shout out to him. He was the #1 overall pick when they did the draft, the MLS draft. So he a Clemson product, Robbie Robinson. Higuain, obviously he was here. I was at his last game. They lost that one. I saw Robert Taylor from the start. He's a god. Him and Messi are going to be a great duo. So
yeah,
we won't talk much.
We won't talk much. We won't talk much about men's soccer, right? However, they did recently unveil their schedule, right? And a lot of
just pull it up real quick. I think that's the move we could do.
Yeah,
it's a schedule. It's I don't want to say it's a gauntlet, but it's a schedule that Coach Russell proved that hey, we're top team in the nation. Let's prove it with our non-conference league.
Now, as Jake is pulling it up, Jonny and I let's kind of go through this baseball project. Let's go.
I already pulled up the schedule.
God damn it! All right,
I had it on my other screen. But anyway,
D2 teams. All right,
that's exhibition.
These are friendlies. So Nova, Southeastern, and Barry. There are a couple of South Florida schools that
they're next week,
right?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Football and soccer seasons are relatively around the same time. So
we'll be there. We'll be there.
Anyway, the season actually kicks off at Oregon State. An interesting.
That's a really. You're going to Oregon. You're going all the way to Oregon.
An interesting P5 opponent that they begin the season with, but they come back home, play two teams they don't often play in, VCU and Central Arkansas.
Rich Witten's former school, right? VCU?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Definitely, you can catch Rich Witten at the game. He's going to be there, no doubt about it. Then you play UCF. Yeah. Now the rematch against New Hampshire, the team that FIU New Hampshire in the NCAA tournament went to like how many shootout rounds? Like 12 I think.
12. It was the longest. It was the longest shootout in NCAA tournament.
Yeah, to see that rematch at home too. That is going to be an absolutely packed house. That is going to be some content.
They're going to have to add a lot more bleachers to that stadium, man.
Oh yeah, they absolutely do. By the way, ranked New Hampshire, then ranked Akron the next game too. So immediately ranked, and then you begin the season against a team that received votes as well. So Temple is alumni night, so definitely the FIU soccer team is going to be rocking for that. You get into your conference schedule now. You have Memphis, University of South Florida, then you get UAB, Southern Methodist, again, another ranked opponent, and St. Mary's as well. That's a 2-game homestand there. Then you're on the road for 2 games against Florida Gulf Coast and FIU. These are 2 teams that FIU always plays. Florida Gulf Coast is a team that they have historically done well against. Same goes for FAU. Who, of course, also moved from Conference USA to the AAC. Then your final home game is on October 27th against Charlotte. And then you wrap up the season with probably a critical game for conference standings against a ranked Tulsa team. So we'll dive more into what we can expect from every game when we get a person like Liam on the show, because, Liam knows best. But a lot of ranked opponents, a lot of 2 or 2-game homestands sprinkled here and there, and some tough road games here as well that'll define this team. Because, just like football, just like baseball, they lost a lot of amazing talent. However, I think FIU soccer's recruiting abilities are second to none.
That's true.
Yeah, Kyle Russell does an amazing job.
I hate to say it, but this is a soccer school.
Yeah. We found that out the last couple of seasons. The support that the soccer team
it could definitely be a football school if FIU.
It could
this season too.
Look, success drives attendance. Attendance drives money back to the program, right? Soccer has done such an amazing job at that because they're back-to-back conference champions, for crying out loud. So just
alrighty,
probably bring that up right there at the end.
Yeah. So I think we can wrap it up. Unless, actually, before we wrap up, very, very quickly, we need to do this baseball projection. So, very quickly, we'll all agree on it because we can't do 3 projections. Catcher, we're going Brendan Rooney, Jonny?
Yeah.
First base, obviously, we could all agree on Adrian Figueroa.
Biggie.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
That's not. See, I'm still trying to figure out. It's.
Third, we'll put Fred.
Okay.
Left
Kevin, I
field.
think it's too early. Don't you
No,
think it's a little too
Yeah.
early?
This is we're calling this the way too early.
The way too early projection.
Okay, well now that it has that moniker, I guess it okay,
Now
that
it
makes
counts. It counts. So
I think left field you put McCory.
McCory at right. No.
Or no,
right.
left.
Center
Left, and then I got center. I don't know. The right field.
Oh no, LeCurry, you put him at left.
Left. Center is still up for grabs.
Jaquan
Right, I got
Smith, right?
Jaquan is right field. He's a corner guy.
Okay. Center is wide open then.
Yeah, and then I guess second base you have Austin Deering as well from State College of Florida. Chase Engelhardt from Tulane. A lot of guys that we'll find out.
And then shortstop is another big one. Oh, Quevedo,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
then starting pitcher day one.
I think Marcus.
Marcus.
Ryan. Back-to-back years.
Okay.
Yeah. And then obviously
when do we usually figure out the schedule for baseball? Like a month in advance?
That'll be December. Like December. I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So boy, that's still
we got a long
lot
way.
of time.
That's a whole other. That's like when football season ends. That's like.
Yeah, then the
all
pause up and everything else shifts to baseball coverage
for spring, and then we got basketball too. Can't forget about men's basketball.
That conference schedule came up when we saw.
Yeah, the conference schedule came out, and we also found out that they're opening up the season on the road against UCF.
They're going to
Which I heard Kevin and Jonny are going to make the trip up. I might have to steal a spot in the car and join.
Let's do it.
One more thing, the Cayman Islands too. FIU going to the
Cayman Islands Classic.
That is really tempting. We'll talk.
You could tell how excited Arturo Dean was when he was on the show. How much he was excited to just be able to go there for a weekend.
Dude, get blown out by no, I'm joking. All right.
I would love for FIU to go back to the Bahamas Bowl in football, just so we can have an excuse to go there.
Man,
dude,
given that I'll be traveling with the team, I'll be able to go to the Bahamas.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I'll be traveling with the boys.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, kids?
No, I think
I'm excited. Football seasons. We got football season around the corner. We got.
I didn't know soccer started next week.
Soccer. Well, still, and I'm just essentially we got the whole school year starting. I know we got classes and whatever, but nothing like going back. And then we got football and all the great sports coming up, and another great year of FIU athletics.
First day of school, August 21st.
Yeah. And one last reminder,
except for Jake.
Yeah, I'm a stupid grad. But go to Fan Fest on August 12th. It's going to be such a fun day. Go to practices, support the team, get some cool autographs. I know they always have some fire posters ready for players and coaches to sign. Always. And then Monty's later in the day. It should be a great time.
And always got one more thing. We got Vice Unis. That's coming soon.
Vice Unis. I'm hearing this talk of they released the themes for every home game. One of them is a retro theme.
Where way back
Blazers.
Yeah, way back Wednesday.
I saw one. I don't know if it was a jersey concept.
It was a concept.
It was a concept that looks super fucking cool.
It looks super clean. Now I don't think they're gonna actually do that. They might have like a patch or something on their helmet about Sun Blazers, but don't expect them to just suddenly drop Sun Blazers throwbacks. They would have announced They would have announced it way ahead of time, like they've done with the Vice Unis.
No, you never know. They never announced the football fields in advance. They would announce it like the day of the game or the day before.
Well, they announced ahead of time that there would be a different design for the field.
That is true.
I would expect a Sun Blazer field. I wouldn't expect a Sun Blazer uniform.
I can confirm the fact that they will have a different type of field for every game.
Yeah, they confirmed that almost when the season ended last year. That it was a success. We're going to do it again.
It's a nice promote. It's a good marketing.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I still remember when the Vice field trended on like
ESPN.
SportsCenter picked it up on social media.
It was super cool seeing it in person too.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think we'll wrap it up here. We'll be back next week. We have a very cool guest. I wouldn't say it's our big. Well, it's a pretty big guest.
We've had some big guests, yo.
2 minutes.
Billy Gill.
2 minutes.
2
minutos.
That's all.
That's the only hint we'll give you, but former FIU alum hopping on.
That is such a massive hint, Kevin. What were you even thinking giving out that?
It was
hint?
Jonny who said it.
No,
Jonny.
That's all.
Hey, well, we could do this.
Look, the guest is absolutely bringing the heat with the topics that we're going to talk about.
Unfortunately, it's not lights out, but it's bringing the heat.
Yeah.
You know who got.
All right, later, everybody.
All righty, folks. From Johnny, from Jake, from myself, and to everyone who watched today, we'll say this: pause up, and we'll see you guys next week. Big show.